What you're about to see is absolutely shocking. Bill Clinton, the founder of the Oslo Accords, the same Oslo Accords that gave Palestinians a state in the West Bank and Gaza, just realized his mistake. He repented on live TV. And the craziest part is that he was talking to Muslims in Michigan. Watch Bill Clinton talk about how he was totally wrong about Israel-Palestine, how he was duped by Yasser Arafat, and how Hamas is really to blame for the Palestinian casualties.
Let me talk about the hardest issue here in Michigan is the Middle East. And I have to be careful what I say because there's only one president at a time and none of us can get ahead of where we're going. But I think we're going to have to essentially start again on the peace process. And I understand why young Palestinian and Arab Americans in Michigan think too many people have died. I get that. But if you lived in one of those kibbutzim in Israel, right next to Gaza, where the people there were the most pro-friendship with Palestine, most pro-two-state solution of any of the Israeli communities, were the ones right next to Gaza. And Hamas butchered them. And so then the people who criticize it are essentially saying, yeah, but look how many people you've killed in Ritalin. So how many is enough for you to kill to punish them for the terrible things they did? That all sounds nice until you realize, what would you do if it was your family and you hadn't done anything but support a homeland for the Palestinians, and one day they come for you and slaughter the people in your village? You would say, well, you'll have to forgive me, I'm not keeping score that way. It isn't how many we've had to kill, because Hamas makes sure that they're shielded by civilians. They'll force you to kill civilians if you want to defend yourself. And look, I worked on this hard. And the only time Yasser Arafat didn't tell me the truth was when he promised me he was going to accept the peace deal that we had worked out, which would have given the Palestinians a state on 96% of the West Bank and 4% of Israel, and they got to choose where the 4% of Israel was.
So listen to what he said. He said the only time, the small time, that Yasser Arafat lied to him was the whole deal, the whole shebang, the whole thing. So the only time he lied to him was the only time that it mattered. So he just is a complete liar. He's like, the only time, the one time. Unbelievable. But it's great to see him sort of, understanding his fault ways. He's learning from his mistakes, albeit, years and years later.
So they would have the effect of the same land of all the West Bank. They would have a capital in East Jerusalem. They would have I can hardly talk about this. And they would have equal access all day, every day, to the security towers that Israel maintained all through the West Bank up to the Golden Heights. All this was offered, including, I will say it again, a capital in East Jerusalem and 2 of the 4 quadrants of the old city of Jerusalem, confirmed by the Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and his cabinet. And they said no. And I think part of it is that Hamas did not care about a homeland for the Palestinians. They wanted to kill Israelis and make Israel uninhabitable. Well, I got news for them. They were there first. Before their faith existed, they were there. In the time of King David, and the southernmost tribes had Judea and Samaria. But the whole fight that you have seen.
You heard what he said there? He said Judea and Samaria. So he's recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the West Bank. He understands that it's not really the West Bank, as Westerners like to call it, but it's Judea and Samaria. He said he went completely biblical there. He talked about King David. He talked about how Jews were there even before Islam existed. And then the main point that he talked about was that Hamas essentially is just an organization trying to destroy Israel. There is no Palestinian state. It's just about destroying the Israeli state. So that's why a two-state solution will never work, because when you have someone dedicated to your destruction, the only time that they would ever possibly accept a two-state solution is only to create another stepping stone for a sort of final solution. So Bill Clinton is spot on here, and I feel bad for him, because he is you could see he's struggling with this. He says it's hard for him to even talk about it, because it must have been incredibly annoying and not annoying, but he must have felt incredibly betrayed by making this whole peace deal and then just falling into smithereens, and we're still going about this years and years later.
Being played out was present in the beginning for Israel. Two parties, Likud and Labor. Likud says, we want the whole West Bank because we had it in the time of David, and to heck with whoever came later and other things. Labor said, we will take what the United Nations has offered us, and we will make a garden in the desert, and we will have friends, and we will work through it. And they did. David Ben-Gurion. They're still fighting this fight today. And so here's what I want to tell you. I'm going to do everything I can to convince people that they cannot murder their way out of this, neither side. You can't kill your way out of this. And they have to make a new beginning. But when I read that people in Michigan are thinking about not voting because they're mad at the Biden administration for honoring his historic obligation to try to keep Israel from being destroyed, I think that's a mistake. Because Donald Trump has shown what he wants. And I don't think it's, and he claims it's good for Israel, but I don't think it is. I think we still have to find a way to share the future. We cannot kill our way out of conflicts.
All right, so this is where the speech sort of takes a turn. So he had a little bit of a shocking realization, and then he fell back into his old ways. He went from, oh, yeah, I tried this two-state solution. It didn't work. They don't want a state. Oh, wait, actually, I think we do need a state. This is the problem with these intellects. They're just back and forth. And I love that he said that Donald Trump has made clear what he wants. He's 100% right. Donald J. Trump has made clear that he wants one Jewish state between the river and the sea. And, hopefully that will be the result of his presidential election win and his next term. This is a video actually from when he was campaigning for Harris. That's why he's talking about voting. But it's really an everlasting video that will go down in history. For more, subscribe to this channel. If you want to help us make more of these videos, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/JewishUncensored. People always ask, how do we support Israel? How do we support the Israel narrative war? And by doing this, by going to buymeacoffee.com/JewishUncensored, you can help us reach millions and millions of people all throughout the world and change their minds or at least hopefully flood the market with pro-Israel stuff to continue fighting this war. Thank you. Have a good one.